thank you, Tony. How are you?
Very well. Welcome back to Radio Luxembourg. Welcome back to Britain. You've just got back from Cannes.
The Cannes Film Festival, yeah.
Yeah. What were you doing down there?
Linda's got she had a film in there with a song of hers called Seaside Woman.
That's right.
And some fella called Oscar did an animated thing of it. And it's like great. And it was in the shorts division of the film festival. It was a good laugh, you know, so we went down there just to kind of see it and to sit behind Kirk Douglas. Or Kirk Douglas, as you say.
Were you really?
Yeah.
Did he say hello to you?
No, but I spotted his dimple.
He was down there, was he, Kirk?
He's one of the judges, actually.
Was he?
Funnily enough, on the thing, yeah. That was good. We just went in quickly to kind of just do it and talk to a couple of press people and look at the film, see a couple of other entries.
I've heard good reports about the film. I heard it's very creative.
It's great, yeah. It's actually, in amongst all the other films, they were quite heavy artsy films, and it was a bit of fun.
Seaside Woman. Now, we'd like to see it in Britain, TV or movies or what? How would we see it?
Yeah, hopefully, you know, all these things depend on, like, the people who distribute pictures and stuff, if they want to distribute it. But hopefully it'll be on cinemas, like as a short before the main picture.
Right. How long is it then?
It's only like the length of the record. It's only about 3-4 minutes, you know.
Yeah. Okay. What about Linda's recording aspirations from here on after that, which was really a debut for her on her own?
Yeah.
Does she want to do more now?
Well, the thing is, like, she's never been that ambitious, really, you know. She just happens to be in the business because she's married to me, really.
Do you push her?
Not really, you know. I just, we used to kind of write bits and pieces together, and we sort of did that one just for a laugh, really, you know, Seaside Woman. And we ended up making it into a record, then she ended up making it into this film. But she's not that ambitious, to tell you the truth. You know, I'm sort of more ambitious, really. I'm the one who's really in showbiz.
Sure.
And she's a bit, I think she thinks of herself just more as, like, the mother of the kids, to tell you the truth, you know.
Which is good for you, anyway.
Which is good for me, it's good for the kids, and that's the way she likes it, so it's good for her, too.
Well, what would have happened if Seaside Woman had become a hit? Would you have pushed her into doing Top of the Pops and things like that?
I don't know. I suppose she would have probably wanted to do something then. But, as I say, she's not very pushy. You know, she's not the kind of woman who really wants to be big in show business. And it was done for a bit of fun for us. So I suppose if it had been a hit, yeah, I'm sure she would have kind of got in there. But seeing as it wasn't,
right.
She's just, you know.
Let's talk about you, Paul, the solo album, McCartney 2. Why?
No, let's talk about you, Tom.
No, I don't want to talk about me. The listeners are bored. The listeners are bored. Let's talk about you. We haven't talked about you for a long time. It's your second solo album.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Why? I mean, you've made such a big play in your career on Wings and making a group, and whenever anybody leaves Wings, you reproduce yourselves, two musicians recently.
Yeah.
Why did you want to do a solo album?
It's just something I like doing. After the Beatles split up, I did an album called McCartney, where I just had a little machine at home, and I just put down a few little tracks, and it was just an interesting way of working for me, because it came out very simple, came out very straightforward and stuff. And I hadn't really thought to do it till recently, and I just kind of thought again, oh yeah, I enjoyed doing that, I'll do that again. You know, I had some time off. And so I just got a machine in a room like where I live, you know, and just got a couple of microphones. I used to just go in there in the morning kind of thing and just see if I could have a little fiddle around and see if anything came out. Well, I ended up doing it for 6 weeks because I got into it and just enjoyed it so much. Like, I couldn't send the machine back for 6 weeks. And I ended up with like about 18 tracks, enough for a double album. So someone heard them. One of our lads heard them and kind of said, yeah, that's good, you know, why didn't you have that as an album? So we just honed it down to a single album. And here we are. There it is.
You actually were writing the songs as you were recording the album on this occasion, I believe.
Yeah.
Apart from one song.
Yes.
The one that was the single.
The one that'll be the next single,
yeah,
Waterfalls.
Waterfalls.
I had written that already. But normally you write the songs and then you go in and record them and think of how you're going to do them and everything. But this time, the main thing about doing these kind of albums is that because you're just doing it on your own, it doesn't feel very important. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of pressure. It's like football matches. You can see a great team. Mm-hmm. They can play really lousy on the big event just because of something like nerves or pressure or just because they know it's important. And it gets a bit like that sometimes with records. So when you're just
Well, when
messing
there's
around...
a deadline coming up for a contract to get an album out, are you under those kind of pressures?
That kind of thing, or even just, you're doing the new Wings album, and you just think, oh, this better be good and stuff, But when I'm just doing stuff on my own, I started this one thinking, well, it may never even become an album, so I'll just have a little cassette for myself in the car or something, or I'll just for my own little cassette player, and I'll just have a little exclusive cassette of a couple of tracks. So I did it all with that in mind. Like, I never once was I kind of pressurized that, I must sing this good, or I better get this right. I just kind of kept thinking, it doesn't really matter, I'll just have a bit of fun doing it, and I'll enjoy it was the main thing. I just wanted to actually...
I got to say, listening to it for the first time, the first impression I've got, and I've only heard it once at this
lousy.
stage. No, I haven't. No, not at all. There's a lot of magic in there, and because it's you, it demands special attention. I have to say that. But I get the impression you're doodling rather than creating a picture of immense proportions artistically. It's more a doodling kind of situation, and.
That's right.
I feel the album's lacking lyrically, whereas normally your lyrics are as strong as your melodies. The melodies are there, and you've got a couple of instrumentals on there, which we're not used to from McCartney.
Yeah. But have you had a look at the lyrics all written out?
No, I haven't.
There's more lyrics on it than you think there are, actually. As you say, there's a couple of...
Bogeyman, the lyrics are very well hidden there, you're having a little laugh there. It's to do with a cartoon concept of a book. Somebody asked you to write a film for it, and that's what...
it doesn't have to be to do with that, because it also just is just a kind of shuffling song. The thing is, obviously, like, if I was trying to do something different from what I normally do, it's gonna be different, or else it won't have worked. So that with lyrics and stuff, whereas I would normally kind of sit around and do it. This was supposed to be doodling, that's exactly why I wasn't even going to release it as an album. But tell you the truth, that's what I like about this album. That's what I liked about McCartney. A lot of it was just doodling. But when you do that, sometimes you can arrive at something that's even better than really sitting down and laboriously working it all out and doing it. Sometimes you can lose a lot of feel doing that. I've heard records where I've heard the demo that someone's done, and then they go in and do it properly in the studio, and it doesn't sound anywhere near as good as the demo. And the demo is the doodle. And sometimes so it depends what you're going for. And on this one, I was just going for, like, feeling, and just to really get my ideas straight down and not be a sophisticated album at all. So it is a very simple album, Whereas, like, if I was doing it kind of to be really serious, I might have sat down and wrote a big string orchestral part, like for the ballads and stuff.
Right.
But half the time I just played guitar and just a bit of singing. But it just sounded all right to me.
The lyric on Waterfall...
I'm glad you like it anyway, Tony.
Yes, no, I do like it, and I'm sure everyone else will. But Waterfall, to me, stands out as being the track on the album. The lyrics captivated me. It's like something, listening to it, I would have wrote for my daughter or my son,
Yeah,
did you do that?
It wasn't actually that. I wasn't writing with the kids in mind, but now looking back on it, now it's finished. It is the kind of thing you would say to kids, don't go playing in the road, and don't go jumping waterfalls, please keep to the lake. Gonna put it out. People said, you should put it out as an album. And I kind of said, just what you're saying. Well, I was just doodling, maybe I shouldn't put it out as an album, because... But a lot of people who heard the doodles and then heard other versions and real records and stuff said they liked those better because they had better feeling. And I think it is one that grows on you.
You said people. You asked people and people gave you advice. Who do you look on as your allies in terms of advice? Who do you respect for advice these days?
Well, I basically just play it round to anyone, wherever I happen to be. When the first people to hear it were like the kids and the kids' cousins and stuff when we were on holiday. And I just kind of watched the kids and see if they bopped around to any of the tracks and see if they liked any, and see if I heard them whistling them later. So that I was on one level. Then there's another level which is like in the office, kind of play it to more professional people, who are in the record business, and see what they like about it and see if they like it or hate it or whatever. And then just within the family, just Linda and stuff, or the group, play it to the guys in the group. I play it to quite a few people, but I say anyway, it's just down to really the individual listeners, you know. Some people like it, some people don't, but that's always been the case with my stuff, you know.
I would love to see the day when you say, okay, forget deadlines for albums. I'm going to really concentrate, maybe a year it's going to take me, and I'm going to concentrate a year into one album. And I think you then could come up with another band on the run, rather than a deadline album. Or if you want to look back at the Beatles, your peak there musically had got to be Sgt. Pepper's. Do you ever think, well, I'll just try and put a year into one album and come up with something absolutely amazing that's got all these things people expect of McCartney on every occasion, which they do, you know?
Yeah. Well, as I say, you know, I've got a couple of ways of working. Sometimes I really like to do it like that, and possibly the next thing I do will be like that, because I've got this off my chest, doing it this other way. Maybe after I've done that, then I'll want to go back to this way. You know, I like working both ways.
Right.
But I know what you mean about taking time and putting something down like that. But again, it comes down to individual opinions. You've mentioned Band on the Run and Sgt. Pepper. And I sort of would tend to agree with that, but I have some people I meet really don't agree with that. They're incredibly different opinions. They come up. Some people I've met recently, one guy I met just doing interviews the other day said Back to the Egg was the best album of mine he's ever heard, which, like, certainly in the sales you wouldn't have thought.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you look at everything I've ever done, there's always been stuff. I mean, She Loves You was critically, the first week it came out, there were a couple of people said it's the worst thing the Beatles have ever done. Then after a few weeks, it kind of began to grow on people. And a couple of them kind of turned round and said, well, no, actually, it isn't the worst thing they've ever done, and I like it now. So I kind of don't bother too much with criticism. I know that whenever I've done a thing, there's been some people don't like it, some people think I could have done this better, could have done that better.
But as long as you feel good about it.
As long as I feel okay about it and enjoyed doing it and stuff, that's sort of where I have to leave it, really.
Well, I'd like to talk about Japan, would you?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Okay, I'm sure everybody's battering you with this one. I don't want to come with the same mundane questions. The first question is, I was in Cannes, and Denny came down to Cannes with his wife Jojo, and that's the first we heard about it, because you know what it's like down in Medem, the music thing, for a week. You know, if the Russians had invaded Britain, we wouldn't have found out till we came back. And if Denny hadn't have come down to Cannes, the music industry down there wouldn't have known. And we were all shocked and absolutely horrified for you. What was it really like? From square one right down to the prison. I mean, when the suitcase opened, you obviously were surprised, huh?
Yeah, it was just a crazy time, you know, because we'd come from America, and we were going on tour and stuff. And when I got to Japan, you know, I was nicked. And I just kind of felt like stupid, really, you know, because it's like, oh, dear me, you know, I've done it now. Because...
had you done it, though? I mean, had you...
I just wasn't even thinking about it, you know. It was one of those things that say I'd come from America, where the attitude about that kind of thing is very modern.
More relaxed.
It's a lot more relaxed.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd even get President Carter saying, yes, I think it should be decriminalized and all that stuff.
Yes.
So by the time you go to Japan, it's a big culture shock, you know, it's a whole other thing. So, like, for the first 3 days, I was just petrified, and I was just in clink. And
did you think at that time you were going to serve a long stretch out there in Japan?
Yeah, I was being told it was going to be 7 years, you know, so I really, like, for the first 3 or 4 days, I was just terrified, you know, that I was now in Japan for 7 years instead of was going to be 2-week tour, you know. I was already...
Japan, a Japanese prison. What was the Japanese prison like?
I don't know how it compares to any other prisons, really, because I haven't been in that many. Ladies and gentlemen, honest. But it was funny, like, you know, it was just like a wooden floor that you had to sweep out in the mornings. It was a bit like something out of Bridge on the River Kwai, only a bit better conditions, like, you know, there was a reed mat on the floor that you kind of had to...
Did you have to share a room with someone?
No, it was just on my own, actually.
Were the toilet facilities outside that room or inside?
No, it was all inside and stuff.
A bit messy, huh?
Well, I don't know, you know, it's just weird. It's a weird thing to talk about, like, because it's jail, you know, and you think, when you're thinking about jail from the outside, it's a very different thing from actually just sitting in that room and not being allowed to go out. You feel like a kid. You feel like a kind of stupid kid, and your parents have caught you out for doing something naughty, and you don't really feel naughty, but you know you've been nicked, you know. So I say, you know, it took about 4 days for me to get my sense of humour back. Right, you know, 3 or 4 days I was just...
I'm amazed you ever got it back.
Well, in the end, you know, it just got to be a bit of a joke, because I was sitting around the room with, like, all these other prisoners, you know, you got together for like an exercise period, which ended up just smoking cigarettes instead of, no one did much. Not joints, Tony, no. We've renounced all that, Tony.
Oh, sorry. I want to know what happened. When that suitcase lifted and they nicked you and carted you off, I mean, what did Linda do? She was left there holding the baby. She was like...
Yeah. That was the worst thing about it, actually, you know, because, like, if I'd have known it was just going to be me, if I'd have just been a single fellow over there and I'd just been all on me, it wouldn't have been as bad, because, like, I would have just felt, oh, okay, well, you know, Nick, and I've got to deal with it. But that was one of the worrying things, like, because we also took the kids, which is, like, really the worst bit for me. Because, like, you and I, if we're just talking as men kind of thing, we'll just have a chat about the subject. And we know pretty much what we think about it and stuff. But the kids, it's a different matter, because they get the media thing, and they get all this kind of, daddy's been arrested for drugs.
Protected your children from the media, haven't you?
Well, you know, yeah, really. Just because they're big enough hams as it is, you know, and they'd just be big-headed and everything, you know, if we let them do interviews and sign autographs and stuff, you know, it'd just make them too swollen-headed.
Right.
So we always tried to keep them out of all that. So obviously, like, I was really worried at just what they'd think about the whole thing. It turned out good, though, you know, in the end, because they were, like, amazing, actually. You know, they were really supported me, like, incredible. You know, they were, like, kind of grown-ups about it. But you know, for kids, you know, there's got to be some underlying things that you can't get to. You know, you can talk to them as long as you like about it. But there's still got to be fears that they feel. And I was just worried about them getting frightened about it, you know. Because they know how I am normally, and I'm not kind of a nutcase normally. But when that kind of thing happens, you know, obviously, like, they begin to wonder. And that's what I was just worried about, you know.
Was there anything happened in the jail? How long were you in fact?
9 days.
9 days.
Yeah.
Was there anything happened that you'd like to tell us about? Anything extraordinary? Or did you meet any strange people?
Oh, I met a lot of strange people, you know, and there were a lot of things happened.
You meet people who spoke English?
No, everyone spoke Japanese, but I kind of picked up, you picked up the odd words here and there, you know, just enough to get by on. And
we heard stories of you singing songs to people in prison, was that true?
Yeah, well, you know, you do anything to relieve the boredom. It's like the films you see. You know, if you're on your own in a cell, you know, you just end up sort of knocking on the cell wall and on the pipes and stuff, trying to communicate. And we used to just shout from cell to cell at each other and stuff, you know, and you got very friendly with the other prisoners. I did anyway, you know, even though we couldn't talk about stuff, we used to just sit around and they'd try and say something that I'd be able to recognise, like they'd kind of say, one of them was a racing driver, one of the fellas who was in there, you know. They were all pretty harmless bunch. There was one fella actually, maybe he wasn't so harmless, who was a little bit more serious, but he was a good lad actually.
Yeah.
But
who was the racing
driver? He was in for pot as well.
Yeah.
But he was kind of, he would shout things like, John, play a special. And I'd kind of go, yeah, John, play a special, Ferrari, yeah. You know, we'd just shout car names at each other, you know, and I'd have a laugh at that. And then the others would shout brand names of whiskey. You know, there's only certain things they know about that we know about, you know. They shout out, he was going on for hours, this fellow. He was going, my Hatcher. And I kind of couldn't work out what it was. It was Maggie Thatcher.
Maggie Thatcher.
So, you know, when I clued onto that one, we had a laugh about that.
That's great.
But it was just anything to kind of
What were you shouting back in Japanese? Sukiyaki?
I'd shout out Datsun, stuff like that. You know, it's all I knew, you know.
Fantastic.
Sony.
I don't suppose you made any friends in there you'll be seeing outside of Nick?
Well, I gave my address to a couple of fellas, you know, and kind of said, if you ever come to England on holiday, you know, come and see me and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
No, really, there were a couple of good lads
They will?
there. Yeah, I think there's one of them who might, who's the racing driver. I think he might.
Yeah.
Because he's, you know,
He's a Japanese racing driver.
Yeah, they were all Japanese, all the other people.
Yeah.
But it was a good laugh, you know, and one night when we kind of got really friendly, like, you know, just to entertain each other, like, we'd have sing-songs and stuff, you know. So I would just kind of bang on the cell floor and, like, just sing some songs, and you get over there kind of embarrassment.
Right.
Stuff like that. And they'd sing back Japanese songs, and we got into the Sukiyaki song. It was the only one we knew.
Right.
Which was, I don't know, there were some good laughs, you know. But it's like, for me, it's like a holiday. You can go on holidays. Like when I was a kid, I used to do a lot of hitchhiking around Europe and around England. And some of those holidays were like terrible. I mean, I remember one time we didn't eat. This particular one I'm talking about was in England, and we didn't eat for like 24 hours, you know. But when you get back a year or so after that holiday, you kind of just think it was a laugh. But obviously, like, and during those 24 hours when you didn't eat, it wasn't a laugh.
Right.
So your mind just blocks out all the bad things. You tend to remember all the good things. There's a bit like that about Japan, you know. I just remember the laughs really now, you know.
What about inspiration from that experience? I mean, it's something that people who create songs are probably going to find some material out of. I don't mean write about being in prison, but
Yeah.
going down to that kind of level and seeing all this pain and fear
of
of
the Vapors doing Turning Japanese. I mean to ask them if that was anything to do with it, you know.
Well, Denny wrote a song as soon as he got back about Japanese tunes.
That's right,
The title of which was directly responsible. Because
That's right, cashing in as usual.
absolutely, this is what it's all about, isn't it? Very briefly before letting them leave you here. It's always amazed me. I mean, you had a managing director for a while called Brian Brolly, who left you about a year ago or so. I can't remember exactly when. And the company, the machinery, has continued to work. And it was only a couple of months ago you've employed a new MD, Steve Shrimpton from Australia, who's now kind of taken out of the reins here in London.
This is the company news, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, but it's a side of McCartney. I don't want to do a mundane interview asking the same questions, and maybe the listeners don't realise that not only are you sitting down writing songs and being a good dad, you're also running a gigantic company called McCarty Productions Limited. Every major decision that's made is made by yourself. I just wonder how you found time to combine it and keep productions volatile and working efficiently without an MD overseeing it.
Well, I'll tell you what, the thing for me about having a company and stuff, one of the things I said when we were starting it all up, is that, like, I'm not very business-minded, really. You know, I like the creative side better. So that we tried to set it up very simply, so that even if I'm not in the office, it can just run simply, you know.
But if you're not very business-minded, aren't you in a position where you could be ripped off by somebody?
No, what I do is try and get a very clean machine running that is very simple, and even, as I say, if I'm not there, it'll run okay. And I have people who make, you're saying that, like, I make the decisions. What I tend to do is, like, let other people make the decisions, but they've got to tell me before the decision is implemented. So, like, someone will ring me up and say, we're thinking of doing this about that. Do you think that's a good idea? Which allows me the time to be creative and not have to come in and sweat out all these deals and things. And so I've got just some really good people working with me and for me. Who, like yourself, you know, and Luxie, you've got a lot of creative people, and you will make the end decision about program directing. But there'll be a lot of lads who suggest to you
Disappear and go down so somebody can carry on running it for you.
Yeah, so like I say, you know, I tried to set the thing up very simply, and that's why, like, for instance, in song publishing, we have songs like, for instance, of Buddy Holly's rather than new writers, because looking after new writers is very complicated and a lot of hard work, and I would have to do such a good job on it for those people, because I know what it's like as a songwriter myself. I know what you expect of a company. You really want them to do a great job for you.
Right.
So say we don't do those kind of things that would take a lot of work. We keep the idea of the company very, very simple. And that way, you know, it runs great. We don't get ripped off because we've got some really good people who watch out for all of that kind of stuff. And I just pop in occasionally and kind of just say, yeah, let's do that, that'd be great, that's a great idea. But out of a week, you know, I would probably, in running the company, I would probably spend maybe just 5 hours out of a whole week of actually doing it. So which leaves me really enjoy it. And I really enjoy it that way, yeah. I mean, you're saying I'm the boss of a big company, so which I am. But I don't feel the pressures of a big boss of a big company, because I don't like that way of life. So I've tried to arrange it so I can still just be this little old songwriter here who lives in the country and just enjoys himself. And I come up to London for very important things like Tony Prince interviews, your royal ruler, and stuff like that, you know, to try and keep it simple and leave my brain kind of free of the pressures. And it seems to work out okay.
Question, Paul. How long before McCartney 3?
I should think another 10 years.
Another 10 years. What's going to happen immediately in the future? A Wings tour, perhaps?
Well, we're kind of taking a breather now while I get this album out and while Denny gets his own stuff out and the other fellas are doing bits and pieces and writing and stuff on their own. So we're going to take a bit of a breather and think of what we want to do next. Meantime, we're sort of looking at stages and looking at places where we'd want to play. So the minute we want to pick it up and go out, we'll be ready to do that. And we're just keeping our hand in, you know, keeping talking to each other and stuff. And so I would think that we'd be able to do something with Wings during the year. But the nice thing is, like I say, you know, if you live all your life under this incredible pressure, even when you get successful, you're going to turn around at some point and think, I'm a real mug. Because here I am, successful, and anybody else, the man on the street, if you said to him, you're as successful as him, what would you do? Most of them would say, I'd go on holiday for the rest of my life. Yeah. And that occurs to you, and you think, well, you know, I'm a real mug if I'm just sweating and worrying about it all the time.
There's a time when you've got to relax.
So that's what we're doing at the moment with Wings and stuff. We're just taking it real easy. We did the British tour. We were going to do the Japanese tour, but I blew that out.
Will that affect your American visas in future?
It doesn't actually, no. I don't think it affects too much of all of that, because in America it's not so serious, you know. It will affect it, but it won't affect it so much as to the point where I can't go. I mean, it's not as if it was kind of really a hard drugs thing, or it's not as if I'm a kind of, you know,
addict,
real kind of addict.
Head case, right.
It's one of those things that's come up in the last 10, 20 years,
sure.
You know, and
we were all very sympathetic towards you, and I think everybody, any mature thinking person, realised that it was a silly old situation you'd gotten yourself in through no fault of your own, and we were totally sympathetic.
Well, it was my fault, you know. It was, I mean, I don't try and say it was anyone else's fault, but the point is, like, I didn't give it to one of my roadies to take in, which like a lot of people would do, leaving me totally in the clear, you know. It was, as I say, again, it was just a goof, you know. But I'm over that now, you know, and I'm out of it. I'm pretty much just trying to forget it and just have a good time and get on with things.
We learned one thing, you're not a male chauvinistic pig. You pack your own suitcase.
Right, yeah, she won't do it.
Paul, nothing I say or Radio Luxembourg says can underline more thoroughly what the music industry said to you recently. I think the Guinness Book of Records made a statement and presented us all. And recently Ivan Novello presented you with an award for service to British industry. And as long as you keep doing that service, keep writing those silly love songs, we'll be as happy as pie. Thanks a lot, Paul.
Great, Tony. Listen, just signing off here, I just want to say hello to the people listening, because about 10 years ago, I too used to kind of fiddle with that dial trying to get Luxie in clear. And I used to go, and as I was doing that, so, you know, put myself in those people's position and say a big hi and hello and hope you keep tuning in and that, you know.
Well, there's 9 million a week in Britain listening today. I think when you were a kid, there was probably about 30 million because there's no TV.
Yeah, could be.
Dan Dare and the Ovaltinis.
Oh, boy, did I ever listen to that. Yeah, anyway, so, you know, hello to anyone who's listening, and I love you.
Thanks a lot, Paul, and good night.